Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HobbyKing.com. Stuart here with a daily on the much anticipated Durafly Mark 5B release. You would have seen the announcement daily about a month or maybe a month or 6 or even 8 weeks ago. They are now finally here. They're in the majority, if not all, regional warehouses, including the international warehouse in Hong Kong. So what I'm going to do, you probably know about this already, but for those of you that don't, we'll run through some of the details and then we'll get an individual model up on the table because there's really not room for 4 of them, and I'll tell you why there's 4. We have, with the Mark 5, 2 options. We follow 2 options. You've got the green and grey, which is typical of the European theatre offensive. That's when in 1941 the British started going on the offensive as opposed to the defensive, hence the change of colour from the Mark 1A Battle of Britain schemes and the defence scheme. Then also around that same time in North Africa, the Brits and the Americans were flying the Spitfires in the desert, and this is the Mark 5B with the tropical filter. We'll come on to that in a minute. So you get the different schemes to choose from in terms of colour, but then what you also get is the different decal sets. Now, like the Spitfire Mark 1A, these are the same type of decals, so they're vinyl type. They apply very, very easily. You need a little bit of patience when applying them, but it's well worth it because the results are stunning. And all that's, of course, listed in the manual. But the decal choice, that's the important thing. We've actually got 4 different options with these 2 Spitfires. With the 2 green and grey ones, I'll hold the other one up here. You have both. It's the same with both of them actually. You have not only the typical RAF, or in this case Canadian Air Force scheme, but you also have an American scheme. What you've got to remember is the Spitfire saw distinctive service with many nations during World War II, most notably, other than the RAF and the Canadian Air Force, was the United States Army Air Force. So here we see we've got the desert scheme, and here we've got an ETO scheme on this Mark 5B in the green and grey colour. Now that's important to note. Let me put this back down. Now that's important to note because, in all honesty, you've never really seen on the market a Spitfire in American markings. Well, that's actually a tragedy. They flew valiantly and they deserve as much recognition as the Commonwealth Air Forces, I think, and we think, and I'm sure many of you will agree. Now, for both of these paint schemes, we've chosen decals that are very prominent pilots of World War II and of their nation. The first one here that I'm going to look at, this distinctive marking here was flown by Major Robert Levine, and he was one of the high-scoring aces in the North African theatre of conflict. And as you can see, it's actually a really striking and unusual scheme. And if I get the other desert scheme, now this one here, the Mark 5B, this is actually of a Spitfire based in Malta and one of the leading Canadian aces, certainly in that theatre and of the entire war. And this is of course Pilot Officer George Burling's marking of his Spitfire during his time in Malta. Now if I come around to the green and grey ones, what you see here in front of me is what you think is a typical RAF scheme. This is in actual fact a Royal Canadian Air Force scheme. This is another famous scheme, the City of Winnipeg, as you see marked there, flown by Squadron Leader Jeff Northcote, again one of the leading aces of World War II for Canada. And if I bring you over to the other green and grey Spitfire, this is in the markings of, let me bring this around here, this is Captain Don Gentili. Now Don went on to be one of the leading fighter aces on United States Army Air Force P-47s. So it was a very highly decorated American pilot. This actual Spitfire represents the Spitfire that he flew just as they came from one of the very famous Eagle squadrons and went into the 4th Fighter Group. So yes, decals are plenty and choices are plenty. This is a really cosmopolitan selection of Spitfires we have for you. Again, it just really reflects that message that it served with many, many nations and with great distinction. So with those details out of the way, I'm going to bring one of them up and I'll talk about some of the finer points. Now with this single Mark 5 Spitfire in front of me, let's go through the essentials of the model. First of all, of course, it's 1100mm wingspan. I can't believe I haven't actually said that yet, but yes, it's 1100mm wingspan. It runs on a high C3 cell, something like a 2200 65C3 cell, or typically and more practically on a 4-cell 2200 around 40C. There is actually room in there to fit a slightly bigger pack if you wish. 6-channel control on this. You've of course got the retracts, you've got, oh, here we go, I can show you. You've got the nicely detailed retracts, really nicely detailed and scale looking wheels, not like other models that are out there at the moment where they look a bit clownish. Very good detailing on the model in that respect. Beautiful split flaps, and they're painted inside. True split flaps with very nice detailing. Again, something you won't find on other Spitfires in the market. Now bring this back around, you'll see some of the other detailing. It's got LED navigation lights on the wingtips and on the rear of the fuselage here. It's got a very finely detailed cockpit, again as you know from the Mark I, and these are the exhaust stacks. Now we'll start here because I want to detail you the differences between the Mark 1A and the Mark V in the Durafly version. So these exhaust stacks, you will need to glue these on when you get the model. These are actually what they call fishtail exhaust stacks. These were different for the Mark I as opposed to the Mark V, so that's one of the differences, one of the things we've changed. The cannons, these are glue-on. Again, the Mark I didn't really have cannons in service at all, the Mark V did. The blisters are pre-installed at the factory for you. And we've got a new canopy to suit, again, the Mark V and a different rear view mirror. Other than that, essentially it's the same. However, if you choose to buy the Desert scheme, you of course get this tropical or Volks filter. Now this is a nicely molded PVC part, and it's actually in 2 parts. There's an actual split right about here. Now this you will need to glue onto the model. The best thing to do is to assemble the model fully, screw the wing on, and then you'll glue the rear portion on and then the front portion. And that's essentially how you get the Volks filter effect on your Mark V Spitfire. Now whilst we're here, in regards to assembly, well, you have to glue on those additional new plastic parts as I mentioned. Other than that, the basic assembly really just involves putting on the tail plane. This is a screw-on type. If I hold that up, there we go. If I hold that up there, you'll see that the tail plane actually comes in 2 parts, and it just very easily slots in like so. Here we go. Get that aligned. Push it in. And essentially that's it. You would then lock it in place with 2 screws underneath. The wing itself is 1 piece that uses 4 machine screws to bolt in place. Then it's simply a case of mounting your propeller and spinner. By far the most time consuming thing is applying the decals, but in the manual you will get full decal application reference, so there's no nightmares there. You just need to take your time when you do it. And when you do it, follow the instructions with regards to applying. These aren't just simple stick-on decals. Because they're better quality decals, they do take a little bit more care and attention when applying. Essentially, you get a sticky fronting in which the decal is on. You peel that off with the decal on the fronting, lay that down in place on the model, peel off the fronting, rub down, and then for extra security, just go over with a warm covering iron. Again, it's all covered in the manual. Then when we come to installation of components, if I hold this up here, you will see, well, that's obviously where the battery go. You've got your servos for the fuselage, the rudder and elevator just under here. Generous space for that 2200 size 3 or 4S battery. Nicely pre-installed and supplied Durafly branded Velcro strap. A very nice glass fiber battery tray. Not only is glass fiber better looking, but it's actually much stronger and lighter. You'll see a lot of models on the market nowadays with plywood innards and trays. It's a bit cheap looking, it's a bit basic, and it's a little bit old school, to be honest, but you'll be bang up to date with the Durafly Mark V Spitfire, same with the Mark I. And then of course you've got the 35mm brushless outrunner pre-installed and the 50 amp speed controller. In fact, I'll hold those up there. This is the Aerostar 50 amp speed controller pre-installed just under the glass fiber tray. And then of course pre-installed under the hood here, you've got that 35mm 770 kV brushless outrunner. That's again an Aerostar one as well. Now we've had a bit of a change of scene here. I would like to point out that all the models, all these Spitfires that you see in front of me are actually pre-production samples. So there's a few little things that aren't so refined. There's a mold mark on this canopy and a few other bits and pieces. I'm telling you this because you guys may notice it in the video here, but you will not see this in your production models. These are just early prototypes that we've got into the studio to do the video for you today. But essentially, the essence of what I've described in this daily is what you're going to get. And I think you can even agree, even in this pre-production state, these models are stunning. So the one that you will get will be even better than what you see in front of you here. So there it is, that is the Mark 5A Spitfire, following on from the very successful and very popular Mark 1A. The Mark 5B with two different colour schemes, again, the desert scheme and the European Theatre Offensive or ETO scheme with those multiple and poignant decal choices. So I bid you to go to the new items page, check these out. You can see there's some very good deals to be had on these. They're very well priced for what they are. Good, solid 1100mm 3 or 4S model and beautifully scaled. By far the most detailed and the most scale and the best flying Spitfire on the market right now or even in the coming months. So check it out. Thank you very much for watching and I will see you, well, probably next time.